Thank you very much, Excoundrel. I'm Medi, this is Vedi, and it's Medi puppy time.
Hello, little puppy. Hello, it's Medi puppy time. Yes, hello. Hello. Hey. Oh no, don't take the puppy.
No, don't take her. Don't take her from us. She's out there. Oh, Apple.
Oh, bye, puppy. Bye, puppy.
He is the Grinch of the show. That's what I realized.
Well, I guess, guys, it'll just be Medi time for now.
Medi time, League of Legends, let's go.
No puppy, but still, it's still us. We're here for Schalke versus SK Gaming of our first matchup of the day.
I'm covered in dog hair now as well. It's a good thing I'm wearing a white shirt.
So no one can notice. So
no one will ever know.
We've talked a lot about Upper this morning, or this afternoon rather, so let's already talk about some League of Legends, because we're going up again. We have two mixed teams right now, given that Schalke is sitting up towards the top of the standings right now in 4th place with a scoreline of 6-4, whereas SK Gaming are near the bottom of the standings. And they've kind of had very different splits. Schalke has slowly been improving throughout the split. The introduction of Trick, we heard it early on in the pre-game, very much about how he's introduced a lot more macro to the team. He's improved the synergy between him and Abbedagge, whereas for SK, it seems like that they're a shadow of their former self. They're not quite the same explosive team that was constantly looking fights that was being dictated by the early game of Selfmade.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that you have to focus on. Both junglers are so important for these teams. Selfmade has really struggled this split to have an impact on the game. We'll see if SK can get out of their 5-game losing streak. We are jumping on into picks and bans. Schalke on the blue side, SK on the red, and Olaf will be removed first by Schalke.
No surprises there. Definitely an impressive Olaf performance consistently comes out from the likes of SK Gaming. I almost confused him for Inspired then, but the Olaf ban I think just also makes a lot of sense in general. I think he's a really strong early game jungler. I think Selfmade is known for these strong early game playmaking champions as well, and I think that taking it away from him makes a lot of sense, even though on patch 9.14, which is the patch we're currently playing on, Yuumi and Lux have been taking some pretty significant hits. It seems like a lot of these range supports are still being taken off the table.
I understand the Yuumi ban, she's still so powerful. Rakan taken away by SK. We heard Ender say already earlier today that Rakan is probably the S-ist of tier supports at the moment. We'll see where SK go for their final ban as it just does roll its way through. It's Tahm Kench. He was nerfed this patch as well, but we still see it played in the LCK. It still provides support.
It still confuses me, Medic, because I think that he is an extremely weak champion right now, and it does let through the likes of Azir. We saw Abbedagge's Azir last week when they went up against Vitality, and it was a very strong performance from him. It looks like, though, the SK kind of answering with something a little standard in the form of the Corki. They could look to grab themselves a bot lane right now. They're still if pros still consider Lux to be strong, she is up and available, but we're kind of moving down in terms of tiers of supports right now because a lot of the strong ones have been removed. Things like Norless, perhaps Braum. We'll see what is next on the priority list for both these teams.
I mean, I look at IgNar and Dreams, and I know they're both very good Thresh players as well.
True.
Could rise up in priority. With the Skarner locked in from SK, they've secured their mid-jungle duo, and Schalke trying to do the same here as they hover over the Jarvan, but in the end decide that the Flail of the Northern Winds will be their pick in the form of Sejuani.
I think that makes a lot of sense. You already have strong scaling on the side of Schalke. You have good engage as well. Very reminiscent of the comp that they ran up against Vitality last week. Already evident of some decent team fighting. I love the Alawi hover. We've heard a lot of stories on Reddit about all the different Alawi mechanics that people have been figuring out and some of the cool things she can do. She did get some big buffs last patch, but no pro team has chosen to pick her up. I feel like Sivir would make the most sense. It kind of fits into the comp that Schalke are already drafting for themselves in terms of scaling, has good priority towards the bot side of the map. Does give SK the opportunity to pick a counter though. Things like Jinx have often been very solid. You could also, if you're feeling ambitious, you could go for something like the Vayne. Kalista is one that over in the LCK they love to use as an answer to the champion.
We'll see if that is where SK go. Crownshot's been mostly an Ezreal player this split. 5 games on it, and with it still being free, I do wonder if we'll see that as the priority. Instead, it's going to be the Kai'Sa here for Crownshot. First time he's played that. First time we've seen it in a long time as well in the LEC.
Alright, so I know that Kai'Sa was often considered a very solid pick into the Sivir, largely because there's not a huge amount that she can really spell shield. You can obviously mitigate the W, but because of the consistent procs from the Q, it's not really that helpful there. And also, the Kai'Sa is one of the best duelists later into the game. So you'll get to a point where you can outscale her in terms of value in team fights as well, depending on how well you can position. So I like that answer from Crownshot, but I do think that in the laning phase, you aren't able to get a lot of priority or power. So we'll see how SK can compensate for that.
That we will. Blitz and Alistair removed from the pool here. Blitz, of course, with his anti-shielding buff on this patch. Alistair, because
I don't think it was that big of a buff, though. I think that was more of a IgNar. We know you like to play this champion. We don't want to have to deal with it.
If a champion that your opponent has as a pocket pick is then buffed, usually banning it away makes a lot of sense, Vedius. Be on the same page, okay?
Bard is a potential here. Yeah. Dreams used to be a big Bard player when he was actually back on the Challenger team, Misfits Academy, when he used to swap around with the other support that he played with, who I can't quite remember the name of right now.
Yeah, organized.
It may have even been IgNar. It was many years ago. But in any case, a lot of supports being taken off the table, so you're definitely moving down in the priority list. Thresh kind of definitely raises in value right now. I am still thinking about the Bard. I wonder if pros still consider Lux to be good. I think after her nerfs, you kind of are expecting to move away from that.
I like the Jax ban here in the end, getting rid of Sacre, having a split push threat for SK, and we'll get on into the second phase of pick ban. So far, we've seen both teams have relatively good scaling. Corki, Kai'Sa very strong in the late game. Sivir and Azir do very similar things as well. SK looking towards that. Thresh will be locked in for Dreams. We'll see what Schalke decide as a strong answer for it.
They could go for something like the Morgana. The Black Shield works well against both the Skarner and the Thresh, in my opinion. However, Norless also makes a lot of sense. He used to be one of the good picks as an answer to Thresh when he was very popular, and it is another hook champion that IgNar always loves to pick up for himself, so wouldn't be surprised to see that.
I think your prediction was right in the first place. Morgana is the current hover for Schalke, and they lock it in. Now looking towards their final pick. Expect this to be up towards the top lane, something safe for Odo. Have heard rumors of tanks being strong in the top lane once again after some of the bruisers and solo split push carries have been nerfed.
Well, I do think that Aatrox is still strong on the current patch. However, if they want to go for a safe blind, both Kennen and Nico, even though they've been nerfed, should still be considered pretty safe, pretty strong up towards the top side of the map. Kled will actually be the lock-in, though. Now, Kled did get some changes to his bear trap on a rope, so now it applies grievous wounds. That change doesn't seem like a lot, but it's actually made him that much stronger in a lot of unfavorable matchups.
For a tiny bit of clarity on that, it applies grievous wounds with a 60% healing reduction as opposed to the normal 40% healing reduction, so it's actually slightly stronger than the usual grievous wounds you'd get from something like an Ignite. I like the Schalke composition. It looks like it's a run it, you go fast comp, which I always like. SK do pick that Kennen as the final lock-in for top.
So we did talk about how Kennen and Nico still decent in the current meta. The big question is, how much did the nerfs affect these champions' ability to pressure in the laning phase? And if that they are no longer anywhere near as strong, they can't deny farm, they can't force your opponent out of lane, then we should start to see a shift over the next few weeks in these top lane picks. We're already starting to see the Kled today. Will it continue to develop? We'll have to wait and see. For now, though, I'll be honest, not a lot of experience with Kled top medic, so it will be a learning opportunity for me to sit there and see how he plays up towards the top side.
So this morning, Vedius, I put on my TV and I thought, whose dulcet tone should I listen to this fine morning? I thought Papa Smithy, he's the one to go and listen to. And you know what the game was? It was down 1 versus Sandbox.
Perfect.
And you know what was played? Karma into Kled. And you know how far ahead the Kled got? 6 kills in lane. And then he lost the game.
See that.
Sandbag Gaming came out in force. Today we'll see if Schalke can get rid of the Kled curse. Win lane, lose game seems to be the way it worked for him so far on 9-14, but I'm sure Odoamne will want to turn that one around with this composition that runs at you about as fast as it can. SK, on the other hand, have some scaling, have some strength, have some split push, of course, with the Corki, and a little bit of team fight in their back pocket.
I'm excited to see how these comps work out. Definitely a lot of scaling options. If anything, I imagine that early game will actually look to see Trick kind of play towards the bot side of the map, try and utilize some of the early pressure that his laners can generate. We'll see what he looks to do as we're jumping into the game.
Once more onto the breach of Summoner's Rift we go. Schalke and SK looking to continue their second half of the split in winning ways. Of course, SK on a 5-game losing streak at the moment, not looking like the team they were last split. Schalke last split were incredible in the first half and then diabolically bad in the second. You can see that bottom bar, the games that they lost, 6 of them in a row between week 5 and week 7.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where, as a team, they came in looking very strong. However, they didn't really develop much. And while the moment they hit this halfway point, it felt like every other team in the league got significantly better. Yet Schalke had never actually dealt with the problems that were plaguing them in the first half that they didn't even realize that they had. This meant that they resulted in an inevitable downfall. They were forced into a tiebreaker, which they ultimately lost, and they did not qualify for playoffs. Now, though, they're at 6-4. They're only one game down from the record that they had last split. However, many analysts, including me, believe that they look much stronger from what we saw before, largely because of the introduction of Trick. And so I want to see what he is doing in this very early game pathing, because right now he's gotten a pull on towards the bot side of the map. This does suggest that he's looking to path up towards the top side to try and support Odoamne. And something that Odoamne could be looking for is, given that he is a melee into range matchup, there is the risk that he's going to get zoned away from the farm, pushed out of the lane. He's going to have to deal with some harassment. And then what Sacre is going to look to do is try and get a bounce back on the wave so that Odoamne is in a dangerous position. This allows Trick to then path up towards top side and be like, okay, if there's a risk of a gank here, if there's any danger, then I can hang around, provide some safety, and make sure that this Kled is still in a safe and healthy situation so that there's no risk of like this top side.
Offset flashes away, flash in by IgNar as well, but the kill is already down. Crownshot gets burst blood. Offset in no man's land.
Gonna need a replay of that one. That's not what I was expecting to happen at all. Well, it looked like SK were able to get an early level 2. All right, we're gonna get the replay. Let's see exactly what happened down here.
So there's no spell shield on Offset.
Still level 1. Wow, that was just an insane burst of damage.
So I think the big thing that you look at there is you have to understand Upset and IgNar did not respect the Flay Ignite damage.
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't have Spell Shield or Black Shield.
Yeah, so the thing about Flay is obviously it stacks the passive damage on your auto over time, right? So he's been building that up. He lands that Flay into auto, and that's just a huge chunk of damage onto a level 1 Sivir. And with no heal, only on IgNar, it meant that the heal didn't come through because, of course, the Grievous wounds from the Ignite as well.
Yep.
So they were just able to catch them completely off guard. Very small overstep from Upset, and he ends up getting punished for it. Fantastic start for the SK bot lane.
Incredible start all round, and last time it was Crownshot who came out in the later game team fights as the superior AD carry. Here, SK are already getting their lead through that bottom lane. Upset did teleport back into the lane and they pushed up this way, but SK will be able to catch that. Junglers, well, Selfmade is up towards the top side as he's done a full top side clear after taking his blue first. But he was spotted on a ward, so won't be able to find any ganks. And of course, he's Skarner, so probably waiting for that level 6 before he can have too much impact.
Yeah, often from Predator junglers, we see a lot of early basing as well to try and grab themselves the Predator boots so that they can then look for those ganks. So I'm surprised that Selfmade is doing this full clear. Perhaps he believes that because he's going up against a Sejuani and the risk of an invade is very low, that he feels more comfortable like doing a full clear. And so this way he'll like clear the wolves out, get level 4, and I feel like at this point he should look to base. However, I'd be very surprised if they try and contest this Scuttle. There's no real advantage gain. Schalke will just secure themselves control around the Drake. Be very surprised if they try to start it off early though.
It's not going to happen. Crownshot's being able to base, get back into the lane with the teleport. Has a pickaxe to himself. Only a Doran's blade sitting on Upset, so he's well behind in terms of effective damage down towards that bottom lane, sitting on a little bit of gold himself. Odo has been harassed down in the top lane. Kind of expected it in the ranged versus melee matchup, but he's staying within 8 to 10 CS on average.
You can also see how this wave is now pushing towards Sacre. That's because when you have these ranged matchups, you want to try and push early, crash into the tower, and then have the wave bounce back so that you can not only deny the opposition from getting to that farm, but also you set them up for a potential situation to look for a gank that Selfmade is looking for now.
Now, Odo does have flash, but he's nowhere near getting remounted. Sacre going in. Odo looking for the trade. Sacre is so low, but he flashes away, and the kill goes across to the Kennen.
I remember we talked about this early on. We said that Trick could be looking to path up top to try and help Odoamne try and push out this wave so that the gank might, so that they can prevent a gank. But you notice that Sejuani is actually on the bot side of the map. Odoamne is in an awkward situation where he needs help to push this wave underneath the tower. He does not get it. Selfmade's just based. He's already looking to go topside because he did a full topside clear earlier. And so with that Predator boots, he's able to find an early kill. And now SK already at a 1k gold advantage, only 5 minutes in.
Such a good spot for them after they've been struggling so much recently. Schalke will be licking their wounds just a little bit, trying to work out how they get back in this game. Of course, they still have so many tools at their disposal. Looking at level 6 for Trick, Odoamne roaming around the lanes on that Kled as well after he hits 6. They have so much ability to get between these lanes and look for some ganks.
See now Trick level 5, now making his way up top. I'd be surprised if they look for a dive, given that Sacre has just hit that level 6 mark, and they don't have a huge wave stacked up either, but they're going for it.
No flash, bear trap on the rope, it's going to pull him back. Sacre's going to pop the slicing mash with the stun lock onto Odo, but the tower switches aggro. Trick will get the final shot in and won't go down. Schalke get out on top.
Beautiful dive from the side of Schalke, utilizing the Kled passive beautifully. He soaks up a lot of the damage initially. They chunk out Sacre, who doesn't have his flash from the earlier play. And then because he jumps off of his mount, Skull, he's then able to reset the aggro onto his jungler, who then gets to proc the aftershock so that he's able to survive. Extremely well done. And teaches me something valuable. Kled really good in tower dives.
So good. Very much like Elise in the fact you can reset the aggro very easily.
Yeah, so we get to see he tanks up the initial burst. The aggro then resets over to Trick. He doesn't commit too far underneath the tower, but with the help of Odoamne, he applies the E passive, and then he procs it at the very end to get that aftershock. While he doesn't necessarily need it, he probably would have survived anyway. The positioning and setup of that whole play, very well done from the side of Schalke.
And Trick has been the early game impact for this team. Look at that jungle proximity, highest in the league. It means he spends a lot of time around his laners, picking up a lot of kills and assists before the 15-minute mark. He is sacrificing a little bit of his jungle farm, falling behind in terms of creep score, but he is doing so well for this team in the early game.
Yeah, and so far he's been able to help Odoamne out after what was a pretty difficult early laning phase. I do feel Trick could have done a little bit more to assist him during the early stages, but regardless, they find that successful dive, and now at least Kled isn't too far behind. So good stuff there from both teams. Gold very even, slight advantage going over to the side of SK, and let's not forget that the bot side of the map is actually still very even, which is very important for the side of SK, because remember, Upset and IgNar typically should be pushing and shoving and having so much push in this 2 versus 2 because it's there's so much wave clear on their side of the map. And because of that early kill that they got and the fact that they were forced to burn both their summoners, they were forced to play a lot more defensively, which has kept this matchup a lot more even. And Crownshot, he'll hit those spikes much earlier, assuming that he goes for still the tier build that we regularly see, the Mana Munate into Rageblade. He'll get that earlier, he'll start stacking that earlier, and he'll get to a point where he offers a lot more value in the mid game.
I do wonder if Crownshot will go towards an AP build at the end, because Sacre has pressed the attack on the Kennen, which usually leads me to think that he's going to go down AD, but Abbedagge is going to shuffle in here as Trick tries to catch onto Pirean. They'll get the first kill. Selfmade's going to have to run back behind his tower, but here comes Skull charging in. Can't find the connection, and Selfmade will retreat.
Bit of a misplay there from Pirean. He tries to use the dash into the ultimate from Abbedagge rather than just flashing over it. That means he gets shoved into melee range of Trick, and they're able to get that collapse in Selfmade. He can't commit to the fight because he sees Odoamne roaming down. This is another great feature of the Kled. His ability to rotate from lane to lane with his ultimate allows him to join skirmishes very, very quickly.
And we saw Schalke fall behind in the early game, but they were just waiting for these level 6, waiting for these ultimates so they could join up with fights very rapidly. We'll see this once again. Pirean just stays around too long. So
notice how on the minimap you can see that the Kled is very aware of where the jungler is. So he's positioning himself to be able to roam down at a moment's notice. And it looked like that Schalke were expecting Selfmade to make his way down. So given that they had the numbers advantage, they could force this play and work out. But now SK, they're on the attack.
Pirean has the same ability to roam around. The stun's going to land onto Odo. He has the flash, but it's just going to get pulled back. And it's an easy enough kill for Pirean.
Great use of the package to allow SK to find a roam of their own. Odoamne doesn't even have time to flash as Selfmade commits his flash, the ultimate, and all of the damage that they need to help secure that early kill. SK definitely don't want to concede in these early fights.
Not at all. 10 minutes in, goal pretty much even. An extra kill on the board for SK. They picked up a plate in the mid lane, a plate in the top lane as well, whereas there's only one plate so far for Schalke, but they'll be trying to rectify that as soon as they can. Now that the game is kind of slowed down just a little bit, Vedius, I want to talk about what these comps want to do as the game develops.
Well, remember that the thing for Schalke is they're going to be focused a lot on scaling, whereas, I mean, okay, so both teams have scaling, right? But the way in which they execute their comps are slightly different, largely because the thing with SK's comp is they have a lot more pick tools at their disposal. Things like the Thresh and the Skarner are great at catching single targets out, nuking them down, and then, like, utilizing that pressure elsewhere. We'll get back to that in a second as we look back at this replay. You'll see that Pirean just utilized the window that they had because Schalke had just reset. Odoamne stayed top because his wave was in a bad spot, and that allowed SK to find that collapse. And like, this has happened a few times this game where Odoamne, he's been slightly overextended, largely because his wave is in a situation that's really difficult. You can debate whether Trick should be there to assist him in pushing that out, or whether that's a fault of Odoamne. Either way, it has happened, it's not going well, and now we see a bit of a fight around here.
Trick secured the Rift Herald, the stun's going to lock down Odoamne, but he's going to keep chasing in. SK in a 4v3 are backing away. Sacre was on his way down. Trick, in the end, picks up the Rift Herald.
So in this situation, SK were the ones to reset. Schalke were able to gain priority around the river, and they could start this objective up. And unfortunately for SK, they were not in a position to challenge. I forgot the name of the Rift Herald. I should always, to default, go to... what is it? Is it Betty? Or is it Shelly? Is it...
I think people call it Shelly, yeah.
Shelly, the Rift Herald. All right. I'm not sure why we agreed on that, but...
I think it came from the LCS at one point, and then it just it kind of became ubiquitous. I've stopped calling it Shelly, her Shelly, so much was Crownshot going to get a little bit of damage down on him here in the bottom lane as the Boomerang Blade comes out from Upset. Upset did pop the ult there, but wasn't able to find a connection. With the Cloud Drake up, both these teams would be very happy to take that. Of course, not the most impactful Drake in the world.
No, so it looks like both teams will just disengage. So to kind of go back to your original question, what are both these comps looking to do? As you mentioned, Sacre is going more towards the AD Kennen route. In terms of the 1v1 against Kled, we are now seeing that for the Kled, this is very difficult for him because against an AP matchup, he'd probably have a few more options, largely because the AP Kennen would not be able to trade back as effectively. But this time, whenever the Odoamne goes in onto Sacre, Kled doesn't really have any tools to get out. So then as he's escaping, Sacre can just keep hitting him, he can probably stun him, and he can just chunk him out of those trades. So he's always in a favorable situation. He's also been able to bounce the wave a lot. So in a side lane, I feel like Sacre is going to be a huge threat. And while you can use Corki to threaten sides as well, I think that what SK's comp is largely going to be looking to do is find picks throughout the game. Moving to sides, generating numbers advantages, and like trying to split up this Schalke comp and create pressure on areas of the map to deny Schalke the option to actually group and fight, which is largely what their comp wants to do. You already talked about it in the draft. You know, they all press R, they kind of run at the enemy, and then because they scale very well, they're going to have a lot of damage, about 2 and 3 items, and so it's easy for them to force around these objectives.
Well, with SK starting to fight around an objective themselves, Schalke might be looking to respond. Upset and IgNar coming down up from the bottom lane as Trick joins the fight as well, spotted out on a lot of wards. Odo is on his way down from top. SK realize they don't know where the Kled is, and he can join a fight pretty quickly with that charge. So they will retreat away from the Cloud Dragon for the moment.
I think SK were just a little afraid of the setup of the map because they weren't able to get a push on bot, nor were they able to get a push on mid. They thought that if they could take it quickly enough, then maybe they could just sneak that one away without Schalke being able to respond. Unfortunately, they didn't quite have the damage, which means that they now also lost priority mid because they had to take the long way around back to get to mid lane, which has allowed Trick to now use this Rift Herald and get some extra gold into the back pockets of both Trick and Abbedagge.
Yeah, one of those Rift Heralds where you know you're not looking to take the entire tower. You're saying it's 13 minutes, 30 seconds on the clock. We've got 20 seconds to use this. Need to put it down somewhere, need to try and pick up some of that extra gold. Schalke will keep themselves in touching distance of SK for the time being, and this they keep just setting up around the Cloud Drake, kind of baiting me slightly into looking for it, but the vision control from both teams is so strong that it's actually very hard for either team to start it up without being noticed.
So one of the... Well, right now, Schalke have priority because notice that Selfmade is up towards the top side. There is the potential for a dive here. There's always a risk versus Kled because, of course, he can reset. He is pretty devastating, especially when he gets on low HP if he's able to bring back Skal, but Selfmade right now recognizing that, okay, Trick is in the bot side of the map, they're looking to go for Drake, I'm just going to do a cross-map play where I'll either steal away a lot of these top camps, or I'll look to try and kill Odoamne.
Can look for the dive here. Odo's still mounted on Skal, but they're looking for it. Selfmade coming in, they're just forcing him away from the tower. Look, going to try and take that turret down. It will be first tower blood across to SK as Schalke respond with a Cloud Dragon down towards the bottom side of the map.
So very common cross-map play being made. Schalke feel that if they try to go for that fight, that they're going to lose it. So instead, they'll take an objective elsewhere on the map. So as rightly said, first tower gold goes back into SK's pockets, which means they actually now have a decent gold lead. They don't run the risk of going for any fights. They zone Odoamne away from even more farm. And we can see that this Kled is slowly starting to fall further and further behind. So while it had the potential to be a strong blind pick, we're seeing that even though the Kennen did receive some nerfs, AD Kennen can still be quite oppressive in this 1 versus 1.
It definitely can, Vedius. It's about 1,000 fight, 300 gold lead for the Kennen in that top lane. Rest of the lanes are pretty much even. About 400 lead for Abbedagge in the mid lane as he has you know, managed to pick up a few more plates than his opponent. But now we see a little bit of a fight as the binding hits Pirean, and Abbedagge is going to put some damage down with the soldiers. Crownshot and Dreams now towards mid as they try and just get this turret down as quickly as possible. But there's so much wave clear on the side of Schalke, it's going to be very hard to push in unless you find one of those picks that you were talking about.
I think that what we may have seen was SK actually look to swap out of this 2 versus 2 and like move up towards the top side of the map. One of the things I think that denied that was because of the early Rift Herald take that came out from Schalke. There was no incentive for Crownshot and Dreams to actually move out of that situation. But at the end of the day, I think that it was also fine because Sacre in that 1 versus 1 was just so oppressive. He was actually allowed to stay in this 1v1 for even longer, which means that we've had a bit of an extended laning phase between Schalke and SK. Crownshot now face checks.
Straight into the Prism, frozen in place, gonna try and get to the Lantern, has to flash away, but Upset flashes for the chase, and the Boomerang will find its mark. Now Schalke can look for the top lane tower.
Trick in a position to help support his duo. They wanted to secure this tower because they knew that Kennen was in the bot lane, and this was just another cross-map play that Crownshot was not prepared for. He ends up losing his flash, Schalke find themselves a quick kill, and they'll be able to get a little bit more control back over the map.
You can see Sacre is trying to split push down towards that bottom side, but the rest of SK are going down there as well. Has Odo pushed too far? Pirean with no package can't really chase too much here, and SK will just accept the fact they have control over this bottom side jungle, but can't find the kill on towards the Kled.
So SK will be able to secure this one. Interesting plays being made by both teams right now. Remember that Schalke, for a lot of this early game, is very much about scaling. You're kind of now pivoting your direction towards trying to play through the Kled, and you're all about the Azir and Sivir right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sivir being put on farm duty in the mid lane. We'll then see Abbedagge actually go up towards one of the side lanes because he does have TP. And what Schalke have actually done is send 2 down towards bot to make it easier for Odoamne to actually push out, get a bit of farm and experience, and then he's not forced into this awkward 1v1. So now Abbedagge come up against Sacre, and this should be a much easier matchup for the Azir to be able to handle.
Definitely will be. Upset and IgNar are pushing in through the mid lane, as you said, just trying to clear out that wave. It's 2 minutes before a Baron comes up as well, and we talked earlier about how Schalke will want to play around these objectives. Maybe a little bit too early for them to try and pull SK into one of those big 5v5 fights, because they're still only sitting at 1 to 1.5 items on their key carries, and SK are almost up towards those 2 items across the board. Abbedagge try and take down this tower. Dodges away, and Selfmade won't be able to chase him any further.
Notice how Trick was in a position to support along with Odoamne. He actually chose not to go up towards top lane and catch that huge wave, which is now just going to crash into the tower. While Schalke have committed all these members bot, they will be able to steal away the blue buff, but you'll notice how Odoamne is just kind of being the sacrificial lamb here. He's not getting the farm. Yes, he'll be able to pick up this tower, but it's not really going to be much into his back pocket. And Schalke, I feel, have just moved away from allowing Odoamne to be the big carry, and all of their resources are going into the Azir and into the Sivir.
That sort of adaptation can work wonders. Pirean's going to Valkyrie away here as Trick did get hooked up, but here comes the chase. The charge in from Odo, and locked in place is Dreams. Goes gold and goes down. Easy enough kill for Schalke.
Excellent force onto the mid lane play. SK, they didn't have enough pressure anywhere else to be able to make a trade in the event that Schalke engaged. So this is a win-win situation for Schalke. They either force SK off the tower, or they find themselves a kill, or a combination of the two. And what they ended up finding was a kill onto Dreams. They force them off the tower and keep that mid-tier 1 alive. And this allows them to keep control over the top side Baron, which will be a big objective that they'll look to try and force and put SK into a situation where they'll have to fight them, as we were discussing earlier.
We will. We'll have another look at this. It's the power of Kled. Look how far away Odo is at the start of this fight.
And just look at the positioning of SK. What are they threatening right now, right? Like, Schalke lose nothing from trying to force this play because Odoamne can easily roam because there's no way for him to catch. Abbedagge has just pushed out top lane, and the rest of the team is just sitting mid. Now, they all have just reset, so it's likely that they will have to concede this Cloud Drake, but they're pushing out top, and with Abbedagge pushing top, they can now actually group up mid once again. He's used his teleport, but Odoamne still has it. So it feels like the Schalke are still in a prime position to start pushing up the mid lane and start threatening around the Baron.
And part of the power that they have at the moment is the fact that Upset has now finished 2 items on this Sivir, is building up towards that 3rd. Crownshot's only just hit the Ginsu's Manamune. After being ahead in lane, the SK bot lane is actually only odds even with Upset and with IgNar, and so when you get to these later portions, having a Sivir who is equal on items to a Kai'Sa, have to give it to the Sivir in those big team fights.
Yeah. However, of course, there's room for outplay. You know, we've talked a lot about how Schalke want to be setting up this game. For SK, they really need to be playing on sides. And speaking of...
Oh, Odo just wins this. Slicing Maelstrom comes out, but you can call down all the storms you want. Sacre, you're going to have to run for the hills. Odo starting to win trades in the side lane. Upset pops the ult here as he was a bit afraid of the flash engage there from Selfmade, but here comes Trick. Glacial Prism doesn't connect. The Lantern comes out. Dreams is going to flash away, and Trick happy enough securing that summoner.
See, I feel like right now, SK just aren't quite sure on how to play towards their sides. I also was quite surprised that Sacre got so easily forced out by Odoamne. We talked about how I expected the Kennen to be outscaling, but then Odoamne just goes for that all-in, chunks the Kennen out, and now he's TPing in for a fight.
He's got the charge as well, straight onto the backline. Crownshot is caught out between 3 members of Schalke. He jumps back though, able to survive for the moment. The Impale coming out as well, and Crownshot's still alive. In the end, he goes down. 2 quick kills for Schalke as they look to push forward.
And this was another beautiful fight from Schalke. They still have all 5 members alive, and now they can look to force the Baron. SK, they're just not playing around their side lanes effectively. They're getting baited into all these fights. Let's see if Pirean can do something to try and interrupt.
Almost takes down IgNar, upset there with Black Shield. Pirean tries to Valkyrie away but can't escape. Sacre doesn't have the slicing Maelstrom, but the Baron is helping him and Selfmade out in this fight. Odo down to about a 3rd HP, IgNar on a sliver. There's the Glacial Prism though. Are Schalke going to turn? Because Selfmade's just around the corner. Doesn't have the flash to get into that Baron pit though. And Upset's forcing them away. He flashes back into the pit. And Schalke secure the objective. But here comes the rest of SK. They're pushing forward. Crownshot trying to join the fray. Odo stepping forward. Looking to get off Scar though. He takes so much damage. And Sacre will take him out. Schalke walk away with 4 buffs remaining.
But Schalke, they're feeling very happy right now. SK, they were in a situation where, look, keep your eyes on the minimap right now, so you can see that they are grouped up and pushing in mid lane. It is so easy for the Kled to just TP in here, because Schalke are like, well, we want to 5v5 you, you're all grouped up for us to 5, and if the Kennen TP's in here, we're still just going to win, because we're so much stronger in the team fight that, like, you can't contest us. They needed to be playing more defensive. They needed to wait for Kennen to actually be threatening on a side lane before they could look to try and threaten anything else. This results in this Baron being set up, and while a lot of Schalke members are low HP, it's just one by one that SK go in. Selfmade doesn't have his flash, we can't really threaten the Baron steal. Schalke is zoning Sacre away because they know he's the biggest damage dealing threat. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't have the damage already the tools to go 1v5 in this situation. So while Odoamne does lose his life, Schalke walk away with 4 Barons.
Schalke have had total control of the top side of this mid lane, consistently seeing them finding picks from that side. Now they'll step forward. They have the Baron buffs, as you mentioned, Vedius, and they can look to siege down. Odo's down towards the bottom side, the rest of Schalke up towards top. But you look at SK right now, they're trying to catch out Odo. If he steps too far forward, they can find a pick. Of course, Odo, the one who doesn't have the buff left on the Schalke lineup.
Yeah, I think that Odoamne will just be looking to group with this team anyway. I think that with the Baron, you can just look to like set up a 3-2 setup where you just have people pushing in both mid and top. You just want to look to control the top side jungle. It doesn't really matter what Sacre does on the bot side of the map, because if he's threatening that tier 2, then Schalke can just brute force one of these tier 2 towers themselves, so they can always look to trade elsewhere. Good wave clear though on the side of Pirean for the time being, that is delaying this. You can see that Sacre is getting closer to the tower, and if Schalke don't force these objectives, then it may end up hurting them, but for the time being, I think that's pretty comfortable.
Yeah, just chipping away at these towers bit by bit. They have a 4,000 gold lead at the 24-minute mark. All of that coming off a strong Baron fight. Upset's going to take a little bit of damage. Has the Essence Reaver to regen some of the mana that he is currently lacking. Selfmade has a flank position here. Dreams looking for the hook, but IgNar is going to Black Shield it. Impale comes on straight away. No shield for Upset, and he's done. He's down. Crownshot almost falls as well as Abbedagge tries to turn the fight around in favor of Schalke. Dreams will go down, and Schalke find a catch. Sacre winning down towards the bottom side in the 1v1.
Big pick from the side of SK, but it is not enough to stop the siege coming out from Schalke. They're going to take themselves another tier 2 turret. Odoamne will hold on to the bot lane, try and interrupt the back from Sacre, and this may very well be the first inhibitor tower of the game.
Pirean coming in with a package might force them away for the moment. Crownshot has the killer instinct if he wants to jump all the way in. Deciding against it for the time being. There's a Mountain Dragon on the card. Selfmade's just pinged it. And it looks like SK just want to secure themselves that objective.
Schalke have to reset. Very easy for SK to go pick that one up. They're just pushing these waves out, and they'll be able to move towards the mountain. But great flank coming out from Selfmade there. Able to catch out Upset when he was very low on mana. He had to try and spell shield the ultimate, but of course, you also have to worry about the E that could threaten to land. You never know when that ulti is going to come out. You have to have insane reaction speeds, and in the meantime, this Skarner is just going to be running at your face. So you can see how he pads through the darkness of the jungle. Really good flay onto IgNar means that the Black Shield also can't come out onto Upset. This means that he's forced really between a rock and a hard place, or a Scorpion and a guy with a hook, and he's able... and SK are able to find that pick. Unfortunately, Sacre is so far ahead that they find a return kill onto Dreams, who I believe didn't have flash in that situation. And while it was a good pick, it didn't really net them much outside of the tier 2 in the bot lane.
They did manage to keep their inhibitor tower alive for the moment. There's 2 minutes left on the next Baron. SK continue to keep within about 4,000 gold or so of Schalke here. And they're looking so much stronger than they have in previous weeks. I must remind you guys, they're on a 5-game losing streak. They haven't won since Rift Rivals. Or since before Rift Rivals on the LEC stage, where Schalke continue to go from strength to strength. But this game, SK have managed to fight back. Now we're sitting at almost 3 items on Crownshot, going towards Nash's Tooth as his 3rd item on the Kai'Sa.
I do feel, though, that SK have failed to successfully play around their biggest win condition, which has been Sacre. It feels like that he's never been set up so that if Schalke try to force a fight, that they're going to lose something elsewhere on the map. And SK should be constantly positioning in a way where they never want to fight. They always want to play a little more defensively. They want to allow SK, they want to allow Sacre to be threatening something so they can force a pick for Schalke to split up. And honestly, this game, they failed to do that. They've given so many easy opportunities for Schalke to force a fight, like Schalke are trying to do right now. Charging
in here. Scar will not find his mark. Crownshot has the blast cone to jump away, and SK will escape to live another day. Do you want to bring attention to the fact that Upset has a QSS, and now Selfmade was actually spotted down here. He's going to run the wrong way into the jungle. There's only 40 seconds left on the Baron as well. Selfmade has to try and find a way away from this, but IgNar is on the chase, and Upset will be there as well. Soul Shackles comes out, straight into the waking arms of Upset goes Selfmade. Trick coming in from the side as well, and the SK jungler will fall.
And now the jungler is dead. The Baron spawns in 30 seconds, and you can see that that death timer is longer than that. This will give easy access for Schalke towards the Baron, and then they can start threatening the base of SK once again.
It's not just the fact that he died, he used his flash. The blast cone was just used by Crownshot to try and get out of that last engage as well. So it actually makes it very hard for SK even to look for a steal around the Baron, unless they try and hard force a fight into a team that wants 5v5 fights. It's very difficult for SK here, and Schalke start up the Baron.
Well, I don't think there's much that SK can really do. You can see that Selfmade not even alive yet. This Baron is going to drop extremely quickly off the back of an Azir and a Sivir with 3 items done. Maybe they can get a lucky steal with a rocket. Doesn't look like it today.
Team Rocket's not blasting off again today. Unfortunately for SK, Schalke have their 2nd Baron of the game. We'll see if they can break open the base of our 8th place team. Or tied 7th, technically.
I mean, the thing is, about this game that I think surprises me is that Schalke, in my opinion, are one of our better team fighting teams. I think that how they react to fights and how they play fights is like one of their biggest strengths. You know, we've seen Trick impact the early game a lot more recently, but I feel that what they're actually really good at is being able to play around these objectives, play these 5 versus 5s, knowing when they can go in, knowing when they can't take fights. And they drafted what is, in my opinion, like a very typical Schalke comp that kind of plays towards their strengths. Whereas SK, it feels like that they're playing like a bit of a hybrid comp where they really need to play towards side lanes. And I don't think they've ever demonstrated an ability to do it. And now we see them trying to play towards the side lane. Odoamne walks away for free. Schalke has a Baron, and so they're going to very easily trade this for a tower, which SK cannot answer.
Might even trade it for an inhibitor tower as well, as Abbedagge is pushing in mid. 3 members of Schalke down towards this bottom side. Odo won't be able to join the fight too rapidly, but he does have the teleport instead of the charge if he wants to TP in. Mid lane inhibitor tower goes down. On the hunt used. The hook coming out as well, but Trick just able to dodge to the side of it. Felt it whispered by his face. Selfmade looking for the Predator, going in for the engage. Black Shield used on IgNar. The 2nd inhibitor tower goes down, and now Schalke are just pushing in. Dreams chunked out half HP. The inhibitor will fall, and Schalke can just continue to step forward into the faces of SK.
Schalke know that their 4v4 is way stronger than that of SK. And in this clumped up situation, Abbedagge can just keep poking and chipping away at the SK health bars, enabling them easy access onto the 2nd inhibitor.
Oh, that hook almost connected, but Abbedagge able to dodge away from it. Landed on a minion instead. SK still unable to find these picks We wanted to see them catch out Schalke, but the Black Shield, the Spell Shield, the dodges away from Schalke have been too much for SK today.
I mean, again, I think they needed to play towards their side lanes much earlier in the game. They needed to better utilize the big advantage that Sacre had built up in the top lane, and they were unable to do so. And now Schalke, with this massive gold lead, they have to make some huge mistakes in order for SK to be able to come back into this one. And this is only going to make the playoff race that much harder for SK. They were the surprises last split. They were the team that were able to sneak their way into the playoff spots by getting the huge upset tiebreaker win over Schalke. I suppose you can debate if it was an upset considering Schalke's were 2-7 in the second half of last split. But you can see the evolution that Schalke has made as a team with the introduction of Trick versus the decline of the young rookies that came in last split, that kind of took the league by storm, that allowed Selfmade to earn Rookie of the Split.
Yeah, Schalke, you have to look at them now and wonder, are they our fourth place team? Are you looking Fnatic, G2, Splice, and then Schalke sitting underneath them? Origin haven't been on form yet this second half of the split, or since they got back from mid-finals with the Glacial Prism already hitting. And Trick is on a killing spree. 307 on the Sejuani. And all it takes now is Schalke just waiting out this final push. Minute left on the Baron for them, about 50 seconds before that runs out. It's very difficult for SK to do anything about it. The inhibitor tower will fall and SK will try and make their final defense.
So Schalke grouped up now as a 5-man. Odoamne lying wait in the wings. His charge is primed and ready to go. SK on their last line of defense.
Schalke looking to continue their winning ways. Would be a 3-game win streak if they take this. Pirean has to use the package to get away. Super minions pushing in all 3 lanes now. It's too easy for Schalke. The Nexus turret's next on the menu. They have to be just that little bit cautious. Sacre could jump in, has the flash, has the slicing maelstrom, wouldn't do that much damage, but looking for those stuns for SK to try and find the fight. Trick clearing out a ward. Dreams flashes in with the play. Odo gets away straight away. Dreams almost falls. Nexus Tower will go down, and Dreams will pay for it with his life. Now the second Nexus Tower is on the menu, and Schalke don't even really care about SK anymore. Sacre trying to do what he can onto IgNar, but that's only the support and upset. It's raining down hell with the boomerangs. Schalke decimate SK. There's nothing they can do, and Schalke continue their winning ways here in week 6.
Good stuff from the side of Schalke. I feel like they punished the big mistakes that SK made that game. They were able to find a lot of good team fights around the mid lane where SK were trying to pressure when they did not have pressure anywhere else. Very clean stuff from the side of Schalke. And I feel like this just reinforces definitely a top 5 team here in the LEC. That shouldn't really be much of a debate. But sitting at 7-3, they're primed and looking good, making their way towards playoffs. We're, of course, in week 6, still a game to go tomorrow, and then, of course, another 3 weeks. So a lot of things can change in the standings. They have happened here in Europe, but I feel a lot more confidence in this Schalke roster because I feel like we're seeing a lot more consistency from them overall week to week.
Definitely agree with you there, Vedius. I think the consistency is key for this team. Of course, they've yet to play Fnatic, Splice, Origin, G2 in the second half of the split, so expect to see them take a few losses in the next few weeks, but maybe,
well, we'll see.
Maybe this winning spree will continue. Maybe they'll show us that they can be as strong as they were in the first half of spring consistently. SK, on the other hand, falling down the standings, 6-game losing spree, currently sitting at 3-8, and it's a long, long climb back up. You're looking usually around 7 wins to make it into playoffs. I don't see where those extra 4 wins are going to come from for this team.
But I would say that 9 wins is normally the cutoff point. Like,
yeah,
if you get 9
wins, yeah.
then you're comfortable. 7 is normally when you're looking at tiebreakers, and maybe you can claw your way. But remember that we introduced a new tiebreaker rule, which is that if 2 teams are now 1-1, wins in the head-to-head, the second half of the split wins way more than the first half of the split. So the chance of a tiebreaker game is even less than it was in the past.
You're actually so right about that 9 wins. It was last split that we saw Schalke and SK tie up at 9 wins, and it was SK that took that tiebreaker to make it into 6th place. So 9 wins probably about the cutoff. I'm not sure where I pulled 7 out from. I'm pretty sure we've seen it happen in the past. It's probably where it's come from in my brain. Guys, key player of the game is always an option for you. And if you want to go and vote, go at LOL Esports on Twitter. Odoamne, Trick, and Abbedagge are your options for the game. I'm not going to ask you who it was. I just want you to continue to extol the virtues of Schalke, because I think this was a very strong performance from them.
Yeah, what What I do want to talk about is like how Odoamne played the game, largely because it felt like in the early game, his jungler should have tried to help him a lot more, and how the laning phase played out. Because we talked a lot about how against a range matchup, they're going to constantly look to bounce the waves to put you in awkward situations, and we saw Odoamne twice. It looks like he's overextending, but what's he supposed to do? Just like give up farm and experience? In those situations, he kind of wants his jungler there to support him, and it kind of just felt like he was left out to dry, and he did a great job considering the situation that he was put in.
Well, we actually get to hear it directly from Odoamne's mouth. Did Trick leave him alone, or did he help him out enough? Odoamne, Laure, over to you.
Thank you, guys, and thank you, Odo, for joining me again. Okay, you're looking at Medic now.
I mean, that guy is just straight up flaming me. The guy on the left, the skinny guy. Yeah, the skinny guy.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
It's not flame, it's not flame. I mean, do you think you received enough attention from Trick, though?
No. I don't know. I think we did kind of an okay job. I kind of got covered when I needed some help, you know, and I kind of died when I didn't get it. But I think it was okay. I kind of got the help I needed in the crucial points of the game, and I didn't really, you know, like fall too far behind.
Taking a step back here and thinking about the draft, you blind picked Kled. That's a bold move for me. So give me the reasoning behind this.
Well, Kled is just kind of strong on this patch with the Q change, and he doesn't really have a lot of bad matchups just because when you play against Kled, even if you feel like you can punish him, there's always the threat that if the jungle is there, you will just die, you know? So that's why this matchup that is kind of like unplayable, it was kind of okay. It wasn't really too bad. He didn't really get to take plates or get a really big CS lead. So there's always this like psychological factor, I guess, that you don't really want to die to the gang because it's just so easy to set it up, especially with Sejuani Kled. Mostly it was like, it's a really bad matchup, but we have Sejuani, so the moment we choose to play through my lane a bit, then we should get a lot of advantage for it. And I think for what we want to do with my role in mid-game and how we want to pressure the map, I think it's a good pick because once I get silent prio and I can get a roam to mid, then I get a really, really strong ult. And even though I was kind of useless this game, every time I got my ults off, it put really a lot of pressure on enemy team, and we got a lot of like team fight wins from it.
You say useless, but I don't agree on that. So what do you think when you have to play without so much resources and a lot of pressure? Because that's one... Okay, they're loud, but anyway, yeah.
Scary. I mean, obviously kind of sucks, you know, but the thing is, if I start complaining that I want more resources and stuff, then someone else on my team will get less. And
you have to show up.
Yeah, for the way we play right now, it kind of seems to be working well. Me getting just like resources when it's really, when my lane is in a really difficult spot and when they can like dive or stuff like that, I think it's okay. And I think just snowballing through bot lane is a lot more easy. So obviously, you know, I'd like to play through top side, get some dives going on, invade some jungle camps, get some KDA and stuff. But for us, this is kind of like our identity, and I'm kind of comfortable playing like this because I played like this back in H2K for like 2 or 3 years. So it's not really that hard. We just need to find picks in the meta and a play style that kind of like works for helping out top when top is in a really difficult situation.
And playing Splice tomorrow will give you a big challenge, I hope. So what do you think about this matchup?
I mean, last time it was close, but this time it won't really be that fun for them. Kled is coming.
Okay, Kled is coming. We'll see about this. Thank you, Odoamne. And for more on the game, let's send it over to the analysts.
Thank you, Laure. Yes, we did just speak to Odoamne. He had a lot to say, actually, and I think there was a lot of going through that top lane matchup with the Kled and the Kennen. But, I mean, we have the picks and bans hopefully coming up on your screen in a second. Let's first of all talk about the compositions. What were they designed to do? What was their win conditions?
Well, I mean, if we look on the side of Schalke, they're the victors, right? And they have very clear ideas, you know? They have very strong 5 versus 5. You have the speed up from the Sivir as well as the Kled to try to initiate these team fights. And then just, like, solid DPS across the board. it's very clear what this side of the draft is trying to do. Whereas I think SK got a little bit all over the place. You know, they had strong solo laners. Like, you know, if they wanted to split up into 1-3-1, the on-hit Kennen as well as the Corki were going to be strong. But I didn't ever feel like they had the ability to like push the game state forward. They didn't have those tools.
And I would love to give it a conversation with SK and kind of figure out around the Skarner pick. It felt like as soon as Skarner was locked in, not that Skarner is a bad pick at all, and maybe it's just a denial. I mean, that's one of the picks that Trick has really been running rampant on, but it kind of opened up so many different things. If Skarner doesn't have flash, then your playmaking options are fairly limited on this type of composition because it's an on-hit Kennen. You know, it's not the same AP like Smeb Kennen flying in. Otherwise, then your only CC is a death sentence from Thresh, and then it opens up the Sivir because since you didn't take Jarvan, Sivir becomes a free champion, and it's kind of like, where does Selfmade attack as Skarner on this map?
Yeah, and I feel like the Sivir is actually a huge issue for this team because when I see Thresh plus Skarner and then strong side laners, I'm like, okay, you're trying to play the map, and the way you get picks is by catching the enemy team out on rotation, right? Inside of their jungle. You need to be able to hit them in those parts of the map. But then when there's a Sivir on the enemy team, that means that Schalke is always going to have mid lane priority. That means you can never be the ones running around through the river and trying to get into the enemy jungle. You're always playing from the back foot, which just stops your ability to do anything.
Which it felt like there was a point in this game where SK's composition that they were just playing from the back foot, that there was not a lot of options that they had. Again, anytime that Selfmade lost his flash, there was that big chase in the bottom jungle where he has to burn the flash from the Morgana, and then they immediately rock into a Baron play, and it's like, well, you know, Skarner doesn't have his flash. There's nothing SK can do here. They have no teeth.
From watching the game, there was a bit of a shaky early game from Schalke, but we get to mid-game, it looked they were completely in control. And to be honest, it felt like Schalke did what Schalke does best, that pure teamfight brilliance.
Yeah, and it's so easy for them to find these fights. You know, Odoamne on that flank after the initial engage comes in for this team. And SK, you can see very clearly, they struggle in these front-to-back team fights because, you know, Thresh and Skarner, they're not the best of frontliners. They can't really stand their ground in the face of the enemy. So it becomes a very difficult job when you don't have the BVS frontline. And you have 3 auto-attack-based DPSers.
And I do kind of want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of Schalke, because there's this magnifying glass over them. Are they actually the 4th best team in the LEC, or is it going to be a team like Origin? And something that Schalke do very well is their team fighting, because I think that they're a really good kind of shoot-from-the-hip, reactionary-based team. Their ability to problem-solve, figure things out works well, and they have slight pre-planning, especially when it's around an individual decision like IgNar or Trick. It feels like they're thinking maybe, you know, a jungle rotation out 1-2 minutes in advance, but they tend to prioritize small gains over large gains. And I don't mean that in terms of like, why wouldn't every team go for large gains? But it's like individuals, like an individual back timer or an individual catching farm waves, rather than trying to pressure something like a Baron or a Dragon.
Right, and the idea being that they don't want to take high-risk plays, and that's why what they end up going for is usually like the smaller moves that Frost is talking about.
Well, let's take a look at our key player of the game. Well, it's none other than Trick. 49% of the votes, the superstar jungler of Schalke, the X factor for their performance in this summer split.
Yeah, and in this match too, it was very early attention over on the mid lane to help the Azir get into a good position so Abbedagge could be a carry in these team fights. And then, I mean, him and Odo are the ones leading the charge in these fights. 2 fights was all they needed to win. He gets MVP.
Yeah, I think Trick obviously had a brilliant performance, as did Schalke. Coming up next, Rogue continue their road to playoffs as the dark horse of the LEC go up against the UK underdogs, XL Esports.
And
Which
Excel
usually leads me to think that he's going to go down AD, but Abbedagge is going to shuffle in here as Trick tries to catch onto Pirean.
We've had a bit of an extended laning phase between Schalke and SK. Crownshot now face checks.
Straight into the Prism, frozen in place, going to try and get to the Lantern, has to flash away, but Upset flashes for the chase. He's got the charge as well, straight onto the backline. Crownshot is caught out between 3 members of Schalke. He jumps back though, able to survive for the moment, the Impale coming out as well, and Crownshot's still alive. In the end, he goes down. Schalke decimate SK, there's nothing they can do, and Schalke continue their winning ways here in week 6.